What's the strangest experience that led to a lifelong friendship? Rain in London isn't news, neither are umbrella collisions. But this one stuck. I was rushing through Piccadilly Circus during one of those sideways, bone-soaking British downpours, clutching a cheap umbrella that flipped inside out at the first gust of wind. Just as I was wrestling with it, another umbrella slammed into mine. Hard. I looked up, ready to snap, and found a woman about my age doing exactly the same. We both froze, faces set in mutual annoyance, rain dripping off our noses. Then she laughed, a loud, genuine belly laugh, and said, "Well, now neither of us has an umbrella." I couldn't help it. I laughed too. We abandoned our wrecked umbrellas, ducked under the tiny awning of a bookstore, and kept talking. About the weather, of course, about terrible umbrellas, about how neither of us actually liked the city much, but were too stubborn to leave. We ended up grabbing tea at a cafe down the street, still damp and shivering, but weirdly comfortable with each other. She was a freelance illustrator between gigs. I was a miserable office worker dreaming of quitting. Over cups of Earl Grey, we swapped dreams and complaints. A week later, she sent me a text. "Quit your job yet?" 6 months later, I did. And she was the first to buy one of my paintings at my first gallery show. Sometimes the worst weather leads to the best people. Sometimes losing something is exactly how you find something better. I was at a tiny, chaotic bus station in Bangkok, halfway through a sweaty, sleep-deprived backpacking trip. I tossed my backpack onto a crowded luggage rack, squeezed into a seat, and promptly passed out. When we reached our stop, I stumbled off, grabbed the first black backpack I saw and trudged away, too tired to notice anything wrong. It wasn't until I got to my hostel that I realized my mistake. This wasn't my backpack. Same model, same color. But inside, instead of my battered clothes and waterlogged guidebook, I found a carefully organized stash of art supplies. Sketch pads, pens, watercolors. Panic hit first. My passport, my cash, my life was in my bag, wherever it was. Then curiosity. On one of the sketch pads, in bold handwriting. If found, please call Anna, Thai number. No choice. I borrowed the hostel's landline and dialed. After a few rings, a voice, cheerful, accented, answered. "You have my backpack?" "Yeah," I said, embarrassed. "And you have mine, I think." She laughed. "Meet you in 30 minutes?" We met at a busy street corner, surrounded by vendors selling mango sticky rice and knockoff sneakers. Anna was an Australian artist, traveling alone, using Bangkok as her base to sketch temples and markets. We swapped backpacks. I mumbled an apology. She grinned and said, "No worries. Want to grab a beer?" That beer turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a night exploring the city's neon chaos, from rooftop bars to hidden speakeasies. We traveled together for the next 2 months, through Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, shared tuk-tuk rides, stomach bugs, sunrise hikes, cheap hostels. Years later, she's still one of my best friends. Sometimes the wrong backpack leads you exactly to the right person. Traveling is chaos. Sometimes it's the good kind. I was at the Cancun airport, groggy from a red-eye flight, waiting for my luggage. I spotted my bag, black, nondescript, 1,000 other bags just like it, and hauled it off the carousel. I was halfway to customs when someone tapped my shoulder. "I think you have my bag." I turned. A guy, maybe mid-20s, travel-worn and sunburned, held up an identical black suitcase. We opened both bags right there in the middle of the terminal, confirming the mix-up by comparing swimsuits and battered paperbacks. We laughed, swapped bags, and, on impulse, decided to grab a coffee before heading separate ways. Over lattes and terrible airport pastries, we swapped stories, travel disasters, dream destinations, the existential crisis of returning to real life after vacation. By the time our respective rides showed up, it felt weird to leave. We exchanged numbers, promising the usual, "Let's keep in touch," which everyone says, but never does. Except we did. A year later, we backpacked through South America together. Real bags this time, double-checked and confirmed. Sometimes the wrong luggage leads to the right person. Some friendships start with a handshake. Ours started with a disaster. It was a rushed Monday morning in downtown San Francisco. I was late for a meeting, balancing a paper coffee cup, my phone, and a portfolio under one arm as I dodged pedestrians. I wasn't looking. He wasn't looking. We collided. Hard. Coffee exploded everywhere. On him, on me, on the sidewalk. Papers went flying. My phone skidded into the gutter. I gasped. He cursed, loud, exasperated. But then, seeing the horror on my face, he laughed. Perfect start to the week, huh? I apologized profusely, offering half-used napkins and awkward apologies. He waved it off, bent to pick up my scattered papers, and handed them back with a grin. "You owe me a coffee now," he said. "I definitely do." We walked to the nearest cafe, dripping caffeine, earning sympathetic glances from the barista. Turns out, we worked 2 blocks apart. Both hated Mondays. Both needed a new start. One coffee turned into a standing Monday ritual. We'd meet, grumble about work, spill more coffee, though thankfully never again on each other. 5 years later, he was the best man at my wedding. Sometimes disaster doesn't end your day. It starts something better. Venice is beautiful and cruel on footwear. I was wandering through the labyrinth of canals and cobbled alleys, hopelessly lost, when I felt the snap. My sandal, cheap, worn out from weeks of travel, gave up entirely. I hobbled to a bench, trying to fix it with a hair tie and stubbornness. "You're not going to win against that," a voice said, amused. I looked up. A woman about my age, holding a gelato, watching my struggle with open amusement. "Want help?" she offered. I shrugged, too frustrated to refuse. She sat beside me, rummaged through her bag, and pulled out, of all things, a roll of duct tape. "Never travel without it," she said with a grin. Together, we mummified my sandal, turning it into a questionable but functional shoe. Laughing, she introduced herself, Marta from Spain, traveling solo. We decided to explore Venice together, partly because my trust in the duct tape solution wasn't 100%, partly because, after weeks of solo travel, a companion sounded nice. We got lost, ate too much gelato, argued over the best pizza toppings, and swapped travel horror stories. That broken sandal? Best travel disaster I ever had. Marta and I still take a trip together every year, and I always pack duct tape now. It started with a fight, as many great friendships inexplicably do. I was walking through Boston's Back Bay district, headphones in, mind elsewhere, when I accidentally bumped shoulders with someone coming the other way. Hard. He spun around, scowling. I yanked my headphones out. "Watch it," he snapped. "You walked into me," I shot back, equally annoyed. We stood there, glaring at each other, 2 stubborn idiots unwilling to back down. And then, for some reason, we both laughed. Short, sharp, absurd little chuckles that spiraled into full-blown laughter right there on the crowded sidewalk. "You're not from here, are you?" he said, still grinning. "California," I admitted. "Figures. You people are too polite." We ended up grabbing coffee, partly out of amusement, partly out of curiosity. Turns out he was a Boston native, born and bred on sarcasm and skepticism. I was new in town, clumsy and overly apologetic. That accidental collision turned into weekend meetups, coffee shops, baseball games, deep dive arguments about everything from pizza toppings to politics. Years later, he's still one of the first people I call when life hits me hard. Apparently the best friendships are the ones that start with a good fight. I didn't plan to spend my Saturday morning chasing a stranger's dog through a public park. I was jogging, badly, sweating through my 3rd mile, when a blur of fur and frantic energy bolted across my path. A golden retriever, leash trailing behind him, tongue lolling out in glee. A few seconds later, a guy sprinted past, shouting, "Charlie! Charlie! Get back here!" He was losing, badly. Something in me, maybe a desire for an excuse to stop running, made me join the chase. Together, we zigzagged through joggers, families, food trucks. Charlie thought it was a great game, dodging every attempt to grab him. Finally, cornered near a pond, Charlie surrendered. Plopping down and rolling onto his back in defeat, laughing and gasping for air, we clipped the leash back on. "Thanks," the guy panted, offering his hand. "I owe you one." "No problem," I wheezed. We grabbed iced coffees from a nearby truck. Charlie flopped at our feet. Turns out we had more in common than an impromptu dog chase. Both new to the city, both hating the heat, both addicted to bad reality TV. We started meeting up for weekend dog walks. Partly for exercise, mostly for the company. Charlie's still terrible at fetch, but thanks to him, I found my best friend. Libraries are quiet until they're not. I was holed up in the Toronto Public Library, nursing a coffee, and pretending to work on a project I was way behind on. My laptop battery was dying. My brain was fried. I needed a break. Wandering the stacks, I found a battered paperback wedged awkwardly between two massive art history volumes. Curious, I pulled it out. Inside the cover was a sticky note. "If you like this book, we should be friends. Leave a note at the front desk for Alex." I laughed. Gimmicky, weird, but also intriguing. I flipped through the book, a collection of short stories about cities and loneliness. It spoke to me more than I like to admit. Impulse 1. I scribbled a note on scrap paper. I liked it. "Coffee?" and handed it to the bemused librarian. 2 days later, I got an email. Alex, not a guy, as I had assumed, but a woman, suggested a time and place. We met at a grimy cafe near the library, talked for 3 hours, about books, about cities, about why Toronto sometimes feels too big and too small at the same time. Turned out, the book trap was her weird social experiment. Leave a book, see who responded. I was the first. We're still friends. We still swap books. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder how many others walked past that book without ever pulling it out. Friendships don't usually start with insults, but this one did. I had just moved to Berlin. New job, new apartment, new everything. Lonely, jet-lagged, I tried to call a pizza place recommended by my coworker. I must have misdialed by one number. The phone rang. A gruff voice answered. In German. I stumbled through a butchered request for pizza. A pause. Then, laughter. Loud, genuine laughter. "You called a law office," the man said in accented English, still chuckling. "We have no pizza here." Embarrassed, I apologized and hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text. "Still want pizza? I know a better place." It was him, Carl, the amused voice from the law office. Against better judgment, I accepted his offer. We met at a tiny pizzeria tucked away from the tourist traps. He was older, mid-30s, sarcastic but warm. We swapped stories over slices and beer. I found out he hated law but loved Berlin. I told him about feeling lost in a new city. He became my unofficial guide, showing me hidden cafes, weird museums, the best places to see the city's heart. All because I couldn't dial a phone number correctly.